Captain stood on the bridge of the Horizon Dawn and stared at the impossible. His ship had traveled faster than light for the first time in human history. They had reached Alpha in just 3 weeks. The stars were finally within reach. But now something else was reaching back. The alien ships appeared without warning. They were massive, each one larger than Earth's biggest cities. They didn't fire weapons or make threats. They simply surrounded the Horizon Dawn and scanned it with lights that made skin crawl. Dr. Lee, the ship's scientist, watched her instruments go crazy with readings she had never seen before. "Captain, they're scanning our DNA," said, her voice shaking. "They're looking at everything, our biology, our history, even our brain patterns." Wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. The alien ships were too fast, too powerful. All he could do was wait. After 3 hours, a message came through in perfect English. The voice was cold and mechanical. "Attention, human vessel. You have been analyzed. Your species classification is complete. Grab the communication device. This is Captain of Earth. We come in peace. We seek friendship with other intelligent life." There was a long silence. Then the voice spoke again. "Your intentions are irrelevant. Analysis shows your species is a Class X predator. You are too violent, too aggressive, too dangerous to exist alongside civilized worlds. The Galactic Concord has made its decision." Moved closer to, "What decision? What are they talking about?" The alien voice continued. "Earth will be quarantined immediately. For the safety of all peaceful species, humanity will be isolated until you prove you can evolve beyond your violent nature. This may take thousands of years, or it may never happen." Felt his blood turn to ice. "You can't do this. We haven't done anything wrong." "Your history speaks for itself," the voice said. "Your wars, your weapons, your treatment of your own kind. Every species in the Concord agrees. Humanity is too dangerous. The quarantine begins now." The alien ships released the Horizon Dawn but followed it as ordered maximum speed back to Earth. He needed to warn everyone. He needed to tell them what was coming. But the aliens were faster, much faster. When they reached Earth's orbit 2 weeks later, saw something that broke his heart. A giant barrier surrounded the entire planet. It shimmered like oil on water, covering Earth from pole to pole. Ships from every nation tried to break through, but their weapons bounced off harmlessly. The barrier was perfect, unbreakable. Admiral's face appeared on the communication screen. He looked 10 years older than when had left. "Captain, thank God you're alive," said. "We've been trying everything. Nuclear weapons, lasers, everything we have. Nothing works. We're trapped." Before could respond, the alien ship surrounded the Horizon Dawn again. This time, a tractor beam pulled them away from Earth, and his crew fought against the controls, but it was useless. "You have seen our power," the alien voice said. "Now you will serve as an example. Your crew will be studied. Humanity must understand that the Concord's judgment is final." Watched through the viewing window as Earth got smaller and smaller. He could see the barrier glowing around his home planet. 8 billion people trapped inside like animals in a cage. His crew of 43 grabbed onto whatever they could as the alien ship pulled them into its belly. Down on Earth, Admiral stood in the United Space Command Center. Every screen showed the same thing. The barrier was everywhere. Submarines couldn't dive under it. Planes couldn't fly over it. Even satellites already in orbit were being pushed back down. The leaders of every nation gathered in an emergency meeting. For the first time in human history, every war stopped. Every conflict ended, because now humanity had a common enemy. They had been judged and found guilty of crimes they hadn't committed yet. They had been locked away from the stars they had just learned to reach. The alien message played on every device across the planet. "Humanity is hereby quarantined indefinitely. Any attempt to breach containment will result in total sterilization. You have brought this upon yourselves through your violent nature. Accept your isolation. Learn to be peaceful, or die alone on your world." Admiral looked at the faces around him. Fear, anger, despair, but also something else. Something that had always defined humanity when pushed into a corner: defiance. "They think they can cage us," said quietly. "They think we'll just accept this." "What choice do we have?" asked one of the other leaders. Walked to the window and looked up at the sky. Somewhere beyond that barrier, Captain and his crew were prisoners. Somewhere out there, aliens had decided humanity's fate without giving them a chance. "We survive," said. "We learn everything we can, we study that barrier, we become stronger. And one day, when they least expect it, we show them what happens when you try to put humanity in a cage." The barrier hummed above them, a constant reminder of their prison. But beneath it, humanity began to change. Not into the peaceful species the aliens wanted, into something the galaxy had never seen before. A species with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. The quarantine had begun, but so had humanity's answer. 50 years had passed since the barrier went up. 50 years of isolation. 50 years of anger that never cooled. Commander Jin stood in the underground facility built 3 miles beneath the Gobi Desert and looked at the machine that would change everything. "Are you sure this will work?" he asked. Engineer Sara wiped sweat from her forehead. She had spent 20 years of her life building this quantum disruptor. 20 years of failed tests and broken prototypes. But this one was different. "It will create a hole," Sara said. "Just for a few seconds, just big enough for a small probe, but it will work." Jin nodded. Above them, the world had changed so much. Every nation had merged into one government. Every resource went into 2 things: survival and revenge. Children grew up looking at the barrier in the sky, learning to hate the aliens who put it there. The old world of divided countries and small conflicts seemed like a dream now. The door to the lab opened and walked in. She was thin, her hair cut short, and her eyes held shadows that never went away. Jin remembered when she arrived on Earth 15 years ago. She had been the first person to escape from the aliens and make it home. Her story had changed everything. "I brought the coordinates," said, handing Jin a data chip. 3 conquered research facilities where they're keeping humans, including descendants of the original Horizon Dawn crew. Jin's jaw tightened. Captain had died in alien captivity 20 years ago, but his children were still out there, being used in experiments. The Conquered wanted to study humanity's violent nature. They wanted to understand what made humans so dangerous, and they didn't care how many lives they destroyed doing it. "Tell me again what you saw," Jin said too. Closed her eyes. "They took children, raised them in combat simulations, tested how far they could push us before we broke. They were trying to create the perfect soldiers. Some species in the Conquered have secret wars they don't want others to know about. They thought they could breed humans into weapons." Sora stopped working and stared at. "They quarantined us because we were too violent. Then they tried to weaponize us." "The Conquered isn't what they pretend to be," said. "They talk about peace and civilization, but behind closed doors, they're just as bad as any human empire ever was. Worse, because they lie about it." Jin walked to a screen showing Earth's surface. Cities covered in domes, massive farms, underground factories. Humanity had turned their prison into a fortress. With no aliens to trade with, they had to build everything themselves. Fusion reactors powered the cities. Genetic engineering fed the billions. And in secret facilities like this one, they prepared for war. "Project Prometheus is ready," Jin announced. "We've been patient long enough." Over the next 6 months, Sora's quantum disruptor proved it could work. Tiny holes in the barrier, lasting only seconds, but enough. They launched microscopic probes through the gaps. Each probe was no bigger than a grain of sand, equipped with cameras and sensors that would have seemed like magic a century ago. The probes mapped everything: conquered trade routes, military stations, communication networks, and most importantly, the location of the facilities where humans were being held prisoner. Jin assembled a team of Earth's best scientists and military leaders. They met in a room deep underground, far from any surveillance. "We have two choices," Jin said. "We can wait and hope the Conquered eventually releases us. That could take 1,000 years or never. Or we can show them that caging humanity was the worst mistake they ever made." An older woman named General Min spoke up. She had been a child when the barrier went up. "What are you proposing?" "We weaponize what they fear most about us," Jin said. "Our aggression, our refusal to give up, our ability to adapt and overcome. They think they've seen humanity at its worst. They have no idea." Sora pulled up holographic displays showing new weapons. "We can't match their technology directly, but we can think differently. They've never fought a species that grew up in isolation, focused entirely on breaking out. They've never faced an enemy with nothing to lose." Added her own intelligence. "The Conquered is corrupt. Many species are forced to stay in it. Some want to leave but are afraid. If we can prove the Conquered has been experimenting on sentient beings, we can turn their own members against them." Jin smiled for the first time in years. "Then we have our plan. We make holes in the barrier large enough for ships. We send our best through. They rescue our people and gather evidence. Then we broadcast that evidence across the entire galaxy." "That's a suicide mission," General Min said. "Maybe," Jin agreed. "But we've been dying slowly for 50 years. At least this way we die fighting." The team worked in secret for 4 more years. They built ships designed for stealth, not power. Ships that could slip through the barrier holes and disappear before the Conquered could react. They trained pilots who had grown up hatting the aliens, who would do anything to strike back. Spent her time teaching them everything she knew about Conquered security, how they thought, how they operated, where their weaknesses were. "Remember," she told the pilots, "they think of us as primitive, as animals. They won't expect us to be smart. They won't expect us to be coordinated. Use that against them." Finally, the day came. Jin stood in the command center as Sora prepared to activate the quantum disruptors, 12 of them placed at different points around the barrier. They would all fire at once, creating 12 holes simultaneously. "This is it," Jin said into the communication system that connected to all of Earth. "Today, we stop being victims. Today, we remind the galaxy what happens when you try to destroy humanity. We don't break, we don't surrender, we come back stronger." Sora's fingers flew over the controls, disruptors activating in 10 seconds. Jin thought about Captain and everyone else who had died in the past 50 years. Everyone who had lived their entire lives in a cage. This was for them. "Fire," Jin ordered. The disruptors blazed to life. 12 holes opened in the barrier. 12 ships launched from hidden bases around the world. And humanity's long night of waiting finally came to an end. The galaxy was about to learn a very important lesson. You can cage humans. You can isolate them. You can try to break them. But you should never, ever make them angry. Captain Myra felt the iron defiance shudder as it passed through the hole in the barrier. Alarms screamed. Her crew held onto their stations as reality twisted around them. Then they were through, and space opened up before them like a door that had been locked for too long. "Status report," Myra commanded. 8 ships destroyed immediately, her tactical officer reported. The Conquered was waiting. They knew we'd try something eventually. Myra's jaw clenched. 64 people dead in the first minute, but 4 ships had made it through, including hers. The Iron Defiance and its sister ships activated their cloaking technology. It was based on stolen intelligence, improved by Earth's desperate innovation. The ships seemed to disappear, bending light around them like water around a stone. "The Conquered fleet is searching for us," the tactical officer said, "but they can't lock on." "Take us to the research station," Myra ordered. "We have people to save." The Iron Defiance moved through space like a ghost. Behind them, the holes in the barrier closed. Earth was sealed again, but the mission had launched. Now they just had to survive long enough to complete it. Engineer worked at his station, monitoring the new weapon systems he had designed. They called it Red Lance. It was ugly, brutal, and effective. Everything Earth had learned about causing maximum damage with minimum resources. "The station is ahead," the navigator said. "I'm reading life signs, lots of them." Myra studied the alien research facility on her screen. It looked peaceful from the outside, beautiful, even, but she knew what happened inside, had told her stories that still gave her nightmares. Human children raised in cages, combat simulations that killed the weak, experiments to see how much pain a human could endure. "Load Red Lance," Myra said quietly. "Target their weapon systems only. I want prisoners, not bodies." The Iron Defiance fired. Red Lance weapons weren't like lasers or missiles. They were based on quantum disruption, the same technology that had opened the barrier. The alien station's defensive shields flickered and died. Their weapons went offline. Emergency lights flashed across the facility. "Boarding teams, go," Myra commanded. Marines in powered armor launched from the Iron Defiance. They had trained their entire lives for this moment. Many of them had family members taken by the conquered. This was personal. The fighting was brief but intense. The alien guards weren't prepared for human fury. They had studied humans in simulations and experiments, but they had never faced humans with nothing to lose. The Marines moved through the station like a storm, rescuing prisoners and gathering data. That's when Myra met. He was 24 years old and had never seen Earth. His great-grandfather had been captain of the Horizon Dawn, had been born in a conquered laboratory and raised as a test subject. His eyes were hard, and scars covered his arms from combat training. "You're from Earth?" asked, his voice rough from disuse. "I am," Myra said. "We came to bring you home." Looked at the dead alien guards on the floor. "Home? I've never been there. They told us Earth was destroyed, that we were all that was left of humanity." Myra felt rage burn in her chest. They lied. Earth lives, 8 billion strong and ready to burn the galaxy down to get our people back. Accessed a computer terminal with practiced ease. "Then you need to see this. The Conquered has been breeding humans for 30 years, thousands of us. They use us in secret wars, species that are supposed to be peaceful hire human soldiers to fight their battles. The whole Conquered is built on lies." "Copy everything," Myra ordered. "Every file, every video, every piece of evidence." As the data transferred, more rescued humans came aboard the Iron Defiance. Some were elderly, survivors of the original Horizon Dawn. Others were young, born in captivity. All of them looked at the stars through the ship's windows with wonder and tears. But Myra didn't head back to Earth. She couldn't. The barrier would block them and her mission wasn't complete. Instead, she did something the Conquered never expected. She broadcast everything. Every video of human children in training cages. Every document showing which species had hired human soldiers. Every piece of proof that the Conquered's peace was a beautiful lie covering an ugly truth. She sent it on every frequency, to every corner of the galaxy. The response was immediate chaos. 6 species immediately announced they were withdrawing from the Conquered. Others demanded investigations. The carefully maintained image of the peaceful galactic Conquered shattered like glass. The Conquered's leadership responded with fury. They sent a message to Earth on every channel. "You have violated quarantine. You have attacked our facilities. For this crime, Earth will be sterilized. Your species will be eliminated." Myra recorded her response from the Iron Defiance's bridge. Behind her stood and the other rescued humans. She made sure the whole galaxy could see them. "You called us too violent to live among you," Myra said, her voice calm and cold. "Then you stole our children. You bred us like animals. You used us as weapons in your secret wars. You wanted to see what monsters looked like. Look in a mirror." She stepped closer to the camera. Earth's answer to your threat is simple. Come and try. You'll find out what happens when you push humanity too far. You wanted to see if we were predators. You're about to find out that you were right. But you were wrong about one thing. We're not mindless beasts. We're predators who can think, plan, and remember every single thing you've done to us. Stepped forward. I've spent my whole life fighting for you, for species that pretended to be civilized while using humans as disposable soldiers. No more. Every human you took, every human you hurt, every human you killed, we remember them all, and we're coming for you. Myra ended the broadcast. Around the bridge, her crew worked with grim determination. They knew what was coming. The conquered fleet was already moving to intercept them. Captain said from his weapons station, "They're sending everything they have, 200 ships." "Good," Myra said. "Let them come. The other 3 ships are in position." "Yes, Captain, all recording." Myra smiled. "Then let's give the galaxy a show. Let them see what happens when you fight humans who have nothing to lose." The Iron Defiance dropped its cloak and turned to face the approaching fleet. It was one small ship against 200. The odds were impossible, but Myra didn't care about odds. She cared about sending a message. As the first weapon's fire crossed the dark between the ships, Myra thought about Earth, about the billions of people watching this through the broadcast, about children looking up at the barrier and knowing that someone was finally fighting back. The battle began, and the galaxy watched humanity refuse to surrender. The barrier fell on a Tuesday morning. Admiral watched from Earth's orbital command station as quantum bombs detonated at the barrier's anchor points. The shimmering prison that had held humanity for 54 years flickered and died like a candle in the wind. "All ships launch now," commanded. From the dark side of the moon, where they had been hidden for decades, Earth's fleet emerged. 300 warships built in secret. Weapons designed by people who had grown up in a cage. Every ship carried crews who had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. The conquered fleet was already waiting. 1,000 ships, maybe more. They had come to destroy Earth as promised, to sterilize the planet and end the human problem once and for all. "We're outnumbered 3-1, tactical officer said. "I know," replied. "They think numbers matter. Let's teach them why they're wrong." The first human ship to die was the Defiant Spirit. It rammed a conquered cruiser at full speed, its reactor set to overload. Both ships vanished in a ball of fire, but it created a gap in the conquered formation. Earth's ships poured through. On the surface of Mars, General Min watched asteroid bases activate. Humanity had spent 50 years turning every rock in the solar system into a potential weapon. Automated defense platforms powered up. Mines seeded through space lit up like angry stars. "The conquered thinks this is their fight," Min said to her officers. "They're wrong. This is our home. Every planet, every moon, every piece of rock belongs to us, and we'll use all of it." The conquered ships tried to push forward, but everywhere they moved, they hit traps. Asteroids with hidden engines slammed into their hulls. Clouds of micromines shredded their shields. Earth's ships didn't fight fair. They fought like cornered animals because that's exactly what they were. Dr. Jinnah worked from a bunker deep beneath Sol. Her screens showed the Prometheus virus spreading through conquered networks. It was her masterpiece, a digital weapon that turned the aliens' own technology against them. Communication systems went dark. Navigation failed. Life support flickered. "They rely too much on their network," Jinnah said, watching alien ships drift helplessly in space. "They never considered that someone might weaponize it." But the conquered adapted. They started using isolated systems, cutting themselves off from their network. Their superior numbers began to tell. For every conquered ship destroyed, 2 human ships died. The math was brutal and simple. General Min refused to accept defeat. Her ground forces couldn't reach space, so she changed the battlefield. Using captured alien technology and human ingenuity, She launched kinetic bombardment strikes at conquered staging areas. Telephone poles made of tungsten, dropped from orbit, hit with the force of nuclear weapons. If we can't beat them in space, Min said, we make space too dangerous for them. The war spread beyond Earth's solar system. Human ships didn't try to hold territory. Instead, they struck at conquered pride, ancient monuments destroyed, cultural centers burned, historical sites reduced to rubble. Humanity sent a message written in fire. If you try to erase us, we'll erase everything you value first. Ambassador, meanwhile, traveled to neutral stations on a suicide mission. She had proof of conquered crimes, videos of human prisoners, documents showing secret wars, evidence of corruption that went back centuries. Join us, told representatives of oppressed species. The conquered claims to bring peace, but they bring tyranny. Humanity is fighting for freedom, not just ours, yours too. 6 species broke away from the conquered in the first month, then 12, then 20. The great alliance that had stood for 1,000 years began to crack. Admiral planned her final strike. Earth was bleeding. Every day brought more casualties. Every battle cost resources they couldn't replace, but she had one card left to play. We're going to attack there, announced. Her officers stared at her like she had gone insane. It's suicide, one of them said. Probably, agreed. But they need to understand. They can kill us. They can destroy Earth. But they can't do it safely. They can't do it without bleeding. If we're going to die, we'll make them pay such a high price that every species in the galaxy will remember. The plan was called Operation Funeral Pyre. 73 ships, all that remained of Earth's fleet, would jump to the conquered. They would strike at the orbital capital where the conquered leadership lived in luxury while their soldiers died. Knew most of her ships wouldn't make it back. Maybe none of them would. But the conquered needed to learn that there was no safe place, that declaring war on humanity meant pain would reach even their most protected worlds. The fleet jumped, space twisted. Alarms screamed as conquered defenses came online. But the human ships weren't trying to win, they were trying to hurt. Red Lance weapons fired at maximum power. Quantum bombs detonated. Ships already crippled rammed into orbital platforms. The beautiful capital city in space, a wonder of the galaxy, began to burn. Flagship the Eternal Fury took hit after hit. Half her crew was dead. Life support was failing, but she kept fighting. Send them a message, ordered. Make sure they hear it. The communication officer, bleeding from a head wound, transmitted on all frequencies. You wanted to see what humanity could do, said. You quarantined us because you were afraid. You were right to be afraid. You can destroy our ships. You can kill our people, but you can't make us stop. Every attack on Earth will be answered. Every human death will be avenged. You taught us that might makes right. Congratulations, we're fast learners. The Eternal Fury's reactor went critical, had 30 seconds to evacuate. She didn't. Instead, she aimed her dying ship at the largest orbital station and engaged the engines. For Captain, she whispered, for all of us who were caged. The explosion lit up the sky above the conquered. It was visible from the surface, a new star that burned for 3 full minutes. The symbol of conquered power, their orbital capital, cracked in half and fell toward the planet below. On Earth, people watched the broadcast and wept. Admiral was gone, most of the fleet was destroyed, but the conquered burned, and the whole galaxy had seen it happen. General Min stood at her command post and looked at the reports. Humanity had lost. By every measure, they were defeated. 3/4 of Earth's fleet was destroyed. Millions were dead. Resources were nearly exhausted. But the conquered was in chaos. 23 species had withdrawn. Others were demanding peace talks. The Great Alliance was falling apart. We didn't win, Min said, but we made sure they didn't win either. A young officer looked at her with tired eyes. What do we do now? Min smiled grimly. We survive, and we make them regret they ever tried to cage us, because the fight isn't over, it's just beginning. President stood before the Galactic Assembly and looked at the faces of 50 different species. Some looked at her with fear, others with respect, a few with hate. She didn't care about any of it. 5 years ago, you quarantined humanity, said, her voice echoing through the chamber. You decided we were too dangerous to exist among you. You were wrong. Murmurs filled the hall. The assembly was new, formed from the ashes of the conquered. The war had destroyed the old order. Now everyone was scrambling to build something different. You were wrong because danger is not the same as evil, continued. Yes, humans can be violent. Yes, we can be aggressive. But we can also be loyal, creative, and determined. You saw only what you feared and ignored everything else. An alien delegate stood up. His species had remained neutral during the war. You destroyed our monuments, you killed billions, and now you want us to welcome you. Met his eyes without flinching. We defended ourselves, you came to exterminate us. Did you expect us to die quietly, to make it easy for you? Another delegate spoke. The conquered was corrupt. We acknowledge that, but your violence went beyond defense. You struck at civilian targets. You showed no mercy. You showed us no mercy first, replied. You took our children. You experimented on our people. You caged an entire planet for 54 years. When you teach someone that might makes right, don't be surprised when they learn the lesson too well. Ambassador, descendant of the great captain, stepped forward. He had spent 2 years negotiating the peace treaty. 2 years of arguing, threatening, and compromising. The treaty is fair, said. Earth acknowledges the damage we caused, but the galaxy acknowledges the damage done to us first. We've agreed to reparations on both sides. We've agreed to mutual defense pacts. Most importantly, we've agreed that no species should ever be quarantined for what they might do instead of what they have done. The debate went on for hours, but in the end, the treaty was signed. Earth became a recognized sovereign power. All human prisoners were returned. The galaxy agreed to pay for rebuilding Earth's damaged cities. In return, humanity agreed to join the free world's coalition, not as weapons, not as soldiers, but as equals. Former admiral, now retired but still respected, spoke at the signing ceremony. She had survived Operation Funeral Pyre by sheer luck. A rescue ship had found her escape pod drifting in space. We proved we could burn galaxies, said. We showed you what humanity looks like when pushed to the edge, but that's not all we are. We're also builders, healers, teachers, explorers. For 54 years, you only let us be fighters. Now you'll see everything else we can be. The first human colony ship launched 6 months after the treaty signing, but it wasn't a military conquest. Wu, the leader of the colonial initiative, had a different vision. We're not colonizing, Wu explained to the media. We're cooperating. We found 3 species who want to settle the same systems we do, so we're building together, sharing resources, learning from each other. The colony world was named New Beginning. Humans worked alongside aliens to build cities, farms, and schools. Children of different species played together. Scientists shared discoveries. For the first time in galactic history, colonization happened through partnership instead of conquest. Back on Earth, the scars of war slowly healed. Cities were rebuilt, forests replanted. The planet that had been a prison became a home again, but the people never forgot. Monuments stood in every major city, listing the names of those who died during the quarantine and the war. Dr. Jinnah continued her work, but now she focused on medicine instead of weapons. Her digital expertise helped cure diseases that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. The same mind that created the Prometheus virus now saved millions of lives. General Min retired to teach at the new Galactic Military Academy. Students from 20 different species learned tactics from the woman who had turned asteroids into weapons. She taught them one lesson above all others. Wars should be avoided, But if you must fight, fight to win. Ambassador traveled constantly, building relationships with species across the galaxy. He helped create trade agreements. He negotiated disputes. He made sure humanity's voice was heard in every major decision. "We're not trying to dominate," told a group of young diplomats. "We're trying to participate, to be part of something bigger than ourselves. That's all we wanted from the beginning. The conquered us that chance. The Free Worlds Coalition gives it to us." 10 years after the treaty, stood on a platform at the United Earth Space Center. Behind her, the new generation of ships waited for launch. They weren't warships. They were exploration vessels, research platforms, and trade haulers. "Humanity was banished from the stars," said to the crowd. "We were told we were too dangerous, too violent, too broken to live among civilized species. They tried to cage us. They tried to break us. They failed." She pointed to the sky. "Now we return to the stars, not as conquerors, not as soldiers, but as partners, as friends, as equals. We showed the galaxy we could fight. Now we'll show them we can build." The ships launched to massive cheers. Young people who had grown up during the war watched with tears in their eyes. They remembered the barrier. They remembered the fear. They remembered when the stars were forbidden. In a quiet garden in Seoul, there stood a statue of Captain. His hand pointed toward the sky. At the base were carved the words he had said during humanity's first contact. "We come in peace. We seek friendship with other intelligent life." Children visited the statue on school trips. Teachers told them the story of how humanity was judged too dangerous, fought back, and proved they were so much more than violence. One child asked, "Are humans still dangerous?" The teacher thought carefully before answering. "Yes, humans can be very dangerous when threatened, but we can also be kind, creative, and compassionate. The galaxy learned to respect both sides of our nature, and we learned that being dangerous doesn't mean being evil. It just means knowing how to protect what you love." 50 years after the quarantine began, a new generation looked at the stars with hope instead of hate. Earth was part of the galactic community. Humans lived and worked on 100 different worlds. The species that was once caged now helped build a better galaxy. But they never forgot. In military academies, they taught the lessons of the war. In diplomatic schools, they taught the cost of prejudice. In history classes, they taught about the 54 years in the cage. President, now elderly but still sharp, gave one final speech before retiring. "They tried to banish humanity from the stars," she said. "Instead, they forged us into something the galaxy had never seen before. Survivors who refused to die, warriors who learned to build, prisoners who became liberators. They wanted to see what monsters looked like. We showed them what humans look like." She paused and looked at the young faces in the crowd. "Never forget what we overcame. Never forget the price we paid, but also never forget what we became. We are humanity. We survive. We adapt. We refuse to give up. And we never ever let anyone cage us again." The crowd erupted in applause. Above them, ships from 100 worlds flew past in formation. Human ships flew alongside alien vessels, working together, exploring together, building together. The cage was broken. The stars were free, and humanity had finally found its place among them, not as victims, not as conquerors, but as equals who had earned their spot through blood, sacrifice, and the refusal to surrender. The galaxy learned a hard lesson. When you try to destroy humanity, you better make sure you finish the job, because if you don't, they'll come back stronger than you ever imagined possible. And then they'll show you that the best revenge is not violence, but success. Earth answered the banishment with fire, and then they answered it with something even more powerful. They answered it by living well.